Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about something so many new developers struggle with, and that's something I personally struggle with too, and that's tutorial hell. If you've been watching coding tutorial after coding tutorials but still feeling completely lost when you're trying to build something new on your own, this video is completely for you. I'm going to share with you why most people stay stuck in tutorial hell and how you can escape them in just 90 days. And stick around because I will also share the exact steps and the mindset shifts that help me break free and actually start building real projects, even when I thought I wasn't ready. So let me just paint a quick picture for you, one from my own life. A couple of years ago, every evening, I would come home from work, open up my laptop and fire up yet another coding tutorial. I had enrolled in multiple online courses. I've done dozens from Udemy and YouTube series and all that. You name it, I've probably done it. My browser bookmarks look like a graveyard of learn JavaScript in 30 days kind of course, master React, Node.js for beginners, that kind of thing. So I was consuming tutorials like I was on Netflix, and you know what? I felt productive, and that was the scary part. I follow along with the instructor, type out the same code, download the same packages, run the same, just copy paste the lines of code that we run on the terminal to get things to work and just to get the app working, and it felt like real progress. But here's the ugly truth, it was all just an illusion. The moment I tried to start a project from scratch without the step-by-step hand-holding, I would freeze. And I remember one weekend I decided, all right, enough tutorials today, let's build a simple to-do list app completely on my own with, I think it was just basic JavaScript and DOM manipulation. And this was something I knew that I should be able to do because I had literally just watched a 10-hour tutorial on building a to-do list app, but staring at that empty code editor, I had literally no clue where to begin. My mind, it was blank. I ended up in panic searching, Stack Overflow, trying to copy things, just for basic things, right? Really just copying snippets of code without fully understanding them. And eventually I just felt so defeated. This sounds familiar, right? If this story resonates with you, then you might be in what we affectionately or sometimes painfully call the tutorial hell. It's that frustrating cycle where you keep taking tutorials and courses and follow along with coding videos, but never feel ready to build your own thing. You're always thinking maybe just one more course, one more tutorial, and then I will have all the knowledge that I need. I felt that way. I told myself that I was learning after all. I was putting in the hours and hours of watching and coding along, but in reality, I was stuck in place. I was just there consuming and not producing stuff, right? And it was so frustrating because I wanted to create. I wanted to build. I had ideas for apps and projects that I was excited about, but I was just simply too scared to actually attempt them without a tutorial holding my hand. So one night at about 2 a.m., because of course I was up late binge watching another coding course, I had a moment of clarity. I realized I had been learning to code for over 6 months by that point, but I still had nothing really good to show for it. No personal projects, no portfolio, not even a single small app that I had built for myself. Right? All I had was a stack of half-baked, half-finished tutorials, and I remember feeling a pit in my stomach thinking, have I just been wasting all my time this whole time? Why can't I just do this freaking thing on my own? Right? Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a programmer. And that was honestly a very low moment for me, and I was just so close to quitting together. I started looking for jobs and all that. But then something happened that changed everything, right? I'll tell you that in just a minute, so hang tight. Before we get to know how to escape tutorial hell, let's talk about why we get stuck there in the first place. Understanding the why is super important. It's the first step towards breaking free out of this hell. So if you're in tutorial hell, first of all, just know that you're definitely not alone. In my journey, running a coding education business, an edtech startup, and mentoring aspiring developers here and there, I've spoken to so many people in the exact same situation. In fact, it's become a new normal today for beginners. There's so much coding content out there, thousands of YouTube videos, online courses, interactive platforms, that it's so easy to fall into this trap. Why does it happen? So it happens because of the illusion of progress. Tutorial hell often creates an illusion of competence. You feel like you're learning because you're absorbing information and maybe even following along successfully. It's like playing a video game level where with cheat codes on, you breeze through and feel powerful, but you haven't actually developed the skill to beat the level without cheats. In a programming world, tutorial hell is essentially that. The illusion of progress without actual real progress. You watch someone explain a concept, you're not along, you think it makes sense, right? You even type the code they typed, it feels productive, you build what they built, but the moment the video ends and you face a blank editor, you realize nothing really stuck, right? Because you can't produce, you can just consume, you've always just been consuming. So I've heard it described perfectly as feeling like you're learning something until you try to do it yourself and you discover that you can't, right? right? That was me after dozens of JavaScript tutorials. I could parrot what the instructor did, but I couldn't solve a problem on my own. It's a harsh reality check, and it can really knock your confidence. Honestly, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I'm just not a logical person. Maybe I need even more courses. Spoiler alert, the answer was not more courses, right? So another reason why we get stuck in that is that tutorials are a comfort zone. When you follow a tutorial, you're pretty much guaranteed some kind of result if you just do as instructor. It's safe. You don't get to truly get stuck, because if you miss a step, you can rewind the video or the instructor will eventually show you the solution. It's comforting to have that safety net. On the flip side, starting a project from scratch is really scary. You know you'll hit errors. They're literally drowning in the ocean, and most of these errors are not immediately explained. You have to figure stuff out yourself, and that fear of what if I can't do it, right, pushes you back into the moment, the comfort of tutorials. I remember times I opened a blank project, started to code, got stuck in something, felt dumb, and I immediately thought to myself, maybe I should just find a tutorial on building something similar first. And it was almost like a reflex to avoid the pain of failure. But here's the thing that I learned, right? Failure in coding is good. Hitting errors and getting stuck is not only normal, it's the only way to really learn to solve problems. Every bug you encounter is like a mini small little lesson in what not to do or how something really works. In a tutorial, the instructor often smooths over those bugs or maybe just never encounters them, so you don't learn to troubleshoot. You miss out the most important skill, which is problem solving. Next would be to talk about the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice is real. With coding education, there's an overwhelming amount of content. Raise your hand if you've ever done this, right? A big sale on the online course platform pops up and you go, oh, this Python course is only $10 and this web dev bundle is 90% off. And next thing you know, you have like 20 courses purchased, an inbox full of welcome to XYZ courses emails. It feels awesome at first, like, wow, I have all these resources, I'm set, let's go. But then you lock into one course, you do a few lessons, you get curious about the other one, you see a YouTube video about a hot new framework and you jump to that. Pretty soon you spread yourself across 5 different learning tracks and made little progress in any of them. I have been guilty, so guilty of this. I once had 10 different coding courses in progress simultaneously. I'm not proud of this. One in HTML, CSS, one on React, one on Node, another one on some AI programming, a couple on Python and data analytics. It was just a mess. Each instructor had their own project, their own teaching style, their own coding style. I was basically spinning in circles, dabbling in everything and mastering absolutely nothing. So when you have too many resources, you can end up overwhelmed and paralyzed. You don't know which one to focus on. So whenever learning gets hard, and it always gets hard, by the way, then you just conveniently just hop onto a different tutorial because it's fresh and it's easy to start. It's like constantly switching TV channels. You never finish the show. You just keep watching the enticing pilot episode of each channel. So next one will be a pretty sneaky one, I think. Our brain actually rewards us for consuming new information. You know that little rush of excitement when you start a new course or when you finally understand a concept while watching someone explain it? It's an addictive feeling sometimes. I used to get this high from adding another course into my arsenal or finishing a section in a tutorial. It feels like an accomplishment. Our brains are like, yeah, you did something, right? It releases a bit of dopamine, that a feel-good chemical that your brain needs. Meanwhile, attempting a project and encountering a bug, it feels bad, right? You might feel stupid, you might feel frustrated, and there's no immediate reward. It's no wonder that we gravitate towards the thing that makes us feel good in the moment, which is easy tutorials, rather than us rolling our sleeves and getting our hands dirty with on the things that will make us grow, which is the hard practices, right? Social media and modern tech have only amplified this. Quick example here is I had a student who would only spend hours scrolling TikTok and Instagram for quick coding tips and short tutorial clips. He felt like he was learning because he'd pick up random tips here and there, but in reality, it was some kind of passive consumption, a quick hit of, oh cool, I learned something, without actually practicing and applying anything deeply. It's like thinking you're getting healthier by watching 100 short workout videos, but you never actually exercise, right? Finally, many of us, including my past self, started learning to code on our own with no clear roadmap. We just follow out of curiosity or whatever the internet algorithm suggests next. This can lead straight into tutorial hell because everything seems important. Should you learn HTML first or Python? Do you need data structures and algorithms now, or is that for later? One tutorial says learn by building projects, another says master the fundamentals with these 50 exercises. It's confusing. Without a mentor and a structured roadmap, you end up trying to do all of it. When I first started, I didn't have a mentor or friends to guide me. I was just Googling how to learn coding and doing whatever came up. And in hindsight, a lot of the time could have been saved if I had someone just tell me, focus on this, ignore everything else for now. But I didn't, and thus I fell victim to the tutorial scatter, right? Scattered focus in all directions, which is also called the shiny object syndrome, where something new came up, I just went into it, which kept me in a learning loop without end. So if you recognize yourself in any of these patterns, don't beat yourself up. It's incredibly common. In fact, with the rise of AI and the explosion of content in the last couple of years, I would argue that it's so much easier today to get stuck in tutorial hell right now than it was 5 to 6 years ago. And yes, that includes AI-assisted learning. And let's talk about that for a second. So right now it's 2025. And we live in a world where AI tools can write code for us. Sounds like paradise for a coder in training, right? You might be thinking, if I'm stuck in tutorial hell, can I just use ChatGPT or some AI copilot tool that's able to help me code and skip some of the hard parts? Well, here's the twist, because AI, if used wrongly, can actually make tutorial hell even more worse. Let me explain that. AI can be like an ultra powerful tutorial. You can ask it anything and it can happily provide an answer or even a whole chunk of code. If you've tried this, you know it feels magical. Wow, it wrote the code for me. But here's the catch. If you really only just rely on AI to give you answers without understanding what it's doing, you're basically still just blindly following instructions. It's no different from copying code from, say, Stack Overflow that you don't understand, or following a tutorial line by line. In fact, it might be even more seductive. You ask the AI for a feature, it gives you code, you paste it in, and maybe it works great. You got a quick result, but what happens when it doesn't work, or when you need to debug or modify it? If you haven't gone through the struggle of figuring out why that code should be written that way, you will hit a wall. I've seen people fall into this new kind of trap that's called the AI hell, right? They jump from asking one AI tutorial to another, generating code snippets, but never really learning how to put it together themselves. It's like using GPS for every single turn and never learning the route, right? The day you don't have GPS, you're lost in the city. Similarly, if you rely on AI for every single step, you will not truly become a sufficient software engineer. And employers, by the way, they can tell, right? Even in the AI era, companies value developers who understand problems and how to solve them, not just copy-paste from an AI. In fact, now the basic code generation is so easy. The real skill is knowing what to build and how to architect and troubleshoot it and build it for scale. AI can assist you, but it can't replace the understanding of user needs. So the approach to learning I'm about to share is still relevant today, maybe more relevant than ever in this AI-saturated world. Think of it this way: AI and tutorial, they're all just tools, and they're incredibly useful tools, but only if you wield them properly. If you let them do all the thinking for you, you rob yourself of the chance to develop problem-solving muscles. So yes, even in 2025, especially in 2025, escaping tutorial hell and learning how to learn on your own is a superpower. And this doesn't just apply to coding, it applies to everything else, right? In general, it's just a comparison between input-based learning and output-based learning. You learn based on producing instead of just consuming. All right, so by now we've identified a problem. Tutorial hell is real, it's common, and it's holding you back from your goals. Whether that's building your dream app, changing careers, or getting that developer job, it was holding me back big time. So I promise I'd tell you what changed everything for me. So let's get straight into that. And then I'll break down how you can get out of the cycle in the next 90 days. So remember, I was talking about my 2 a.m. crisis moment when I was about to quit. Here's what happened next. In my frustration, I went online and started searching things like how to actually learn coding, and stuck in tutorial loop what to do. I stumbled across a story of another self-taught developer, someone I really admire. And this guy, his name is Peter Levels, shared how he taught himself how to code by building things, not by taking endless courses. In fact, he kind of rebelled against the whole idea of formal training. He would literally come up with an idea or something he wanted to build, like a website or a simple product. And as he was building it, whenever he didn't know how to do something, he would just Google it, read documentation, find a quick answer, implement it, and move on. No lengthy detours, no getting a PhD in a topic, just laser-focused problem solving. He compared it to learning a language by actually moving to the country. Like instead of sitting in a classroom memorizing Spanish grammar rules for 2 years, you just book a flight to Mexico or Spain and figure out how to order food, rent an apartment, ask for directions, learn the language out of necessity. That analogy hit me like a truck, because up until then, I've been essentially sitting in a classroom of tutorials trying to memorize everything before I dared to go on to the real world of coding. Something clicked, because I realized that I was just doing it completely backwards. I was trying to learn every concept and only then start building, when really I should start building and learning the concepts as I needed that. This was the first principles moment for me. I asked myself, what is the fundamental thing that I'm trying to do here? The answer wasn't complete all courses. The fundamental goal was I want to be able to solve problems with code. And that's it. That's the core skill of the programmer. So why not practice that skill already today, directly, right? I made a decision right then. I was going to escape tutorial hell by building one real project from start to finish in 30 days. I figured 30 days was short enough to commit to, but long enough to force me to learn a lot by doing. The project I chose wasn't even that groundbreaking. It was a simple web app to track my workouts, just because I was into fitness, and I thought, it'd be pretty cool to log my exercises and see progress. Most importantly, it was something that I actually cared about, which helped me, stay motivated throughout the time. So now, I did set a few rules for myself during this build stuff challenge, right? Number one would be to be no new tutorials unless I was completely stuck on something very specific. And even then, I would try to just search for that one specific thing rather than watch a whole series on it. Number two would be daily progress. Every day, I had to write some code or solve some problem on the project, even if it was just 30 minutes of after work. And the third one would be to allow myself to be messy. And this was hard because I told myself it's okay if my code isn't perfect or my app looks ugly. The point was not to create beautiful products. It was to teach myself by doing. And I actually kept a little progress log log every day, noting what I learned extra, what I got stuck on, how I felt, what I learned by fixing it, right? This sounds kind of extra, but trust me, it helped reinforce a lot of the learning experience. And let me tell you, the first week was absolutely tough because you're so addicted to tutorials. So day one, I set up a basic HTML page and I tried to get a simple form working to input an exercise. I quickly realized I had no idea how to properly structure a web app beyond the tutorial context. So I hit a wall. How do I store data? Do I need a database? Should I use local storage? Why not? How do I learn Firebase or what? The old me would have panicked and run to find a course on how to build fitness tracking apps 101. But remembering the new rules, I resisted the urge. Instead, I broke the problem down. Okay, first principles thinking. At the core, I need to save data, right? So they persist when I refresh the page. At a basic level, that's either writing to a file, a database, or using the browser's local storage, right? I remember something about local storage from JavaScript tutorial, so I Googled how to use local storage JavaScript and found a short article with code snippets. I used that to store and retrieve data in my app. It was a bit confusing at first, but after some trial and error, I just got it working, right? I stood up and I was like, yeah, right? When I successfully saved my first workout entry and it showed up after refreshing. That feeling, I gotta tell you, it was addictive in a good way. It was a real win, not a dopamine mirage like finishing a tutorial lesson. I encountered a freaking problem. I struggled, I overcame it, and now I understood something concrete about web development I didn't know before. If this same problem came up again, I knew how to solve it myself. I started craving that feeling more. By the second week, I was on fire. I was adding features to the app. I was editing entries, deleting them, even adding a simple graph of progress. That one made me learn a bit about chart libraries, again, by reading their docs and filling with examples. Were there moments I felt lost and consistently opening up YouTube? Absolutely. I'd be lying if I said I never even wavered, but I kept those moments really short. If I needed a break or was really stumped, I might quickly search a specific issue like how to center a div in CSS. Shout out to all those times I Googled myself. I Googled that, right? If I found a specific tutorial video, I would just watch the part relevant to my problem, then immediately go back to coding. It was like I transformed from a passive learner to an active problem solver. And guess what? By the end of those 30 days, I had a working app. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't going to win any design awards, but it was mine. I built it and it worked. More importantly, I could look at each part of the code and remember why I wrote it that way, because I had learned it by necessity. Well, the project completely changed how I learned. It was the jailbreak from tutorial prison, and it didn't stop there. With that confidence, I went on to build more. Eventually, I even co-founded my own coding, ed tech, and AI startup. Who would have thought, right? When working on those real-world projects, there was no time to stay in tutorial hell. I had to solve real problems in real time. That pressure might sound intense, but it forces you to level up fast. Now, I understand not everyone is starting a company, and you don't need to in order to learn. The point is, building real things taught me more than any tutorial ever could, and it taught me how to learn, which is a skill that's going to keep you going in tech, or honestly, any industry today with how fast things are moving, because there's always something new, and I still learn new technologies. And guess how I do it now? I might glance at a tutorial to get the very basics, but then I dive in and start tinkering, building a small project or a feature of it. That's how I learn React. That's how I picked up Python or some backend work. That's even how I integrate AI tools into my projects today. I'll be honest, I still have to resist the urge of binge watching tutorials sometimes. They're so nicely packaged and they're so tempting. But I remind myself of that 2 a.m. realization and the thrill of solving it myself, and I get back on track. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. How can you escape tutorial hell? I promised a guide to do it in 90 days. So let's break down what those 90 days could look like for you. Consider this roadmap here. So I'm going to outline a strategy roughly over 3-month period, 90-day period, and that you can use to break free from tutorial dependence and become a self-sufficient software developer. Of course, you can adjust timeline, but I find 90 days as a sweet spot. It's long enough to make real progress, but short enough for you to see the light at the end of the tunnel and stay motivated. All right, so let's do this. The first phase, for the first month, I challenge you to dramatically reduce or completely stop consuming new tutorials. Yeah, I know that sounds scary. It's like stepping out of your training wheels, but think of it like a detox cleanse for your brain. You need to clear the constant flood of information so you can focus. If you're in the middle of a tutorial right now and it's truly helping, you can finish it, but don't start any new big courses. Unsubscribe from that Course of the Week newsletter. Resist the YouTube rabbit holes. This might feel weird, maybe uncomfortable, but remember, discomfort is where growth happens. Write this on a sticky note and put it on your monitor if you want. No new tutorials this month. I'm on build mode. All right, do it. Instead of spending your time watching others code, you're going to use that time to plan and start your own project. This is also the month where you set a clear goal. Ask yourself, what do I actually want to accomplish in coding? Is it to build a specific app? Is it to learn enough to be a junior developer? Is it to automate something from my current work? Having that clear goal will give you a direction. Once you have a clear goal, pick one project that will move you toward that goal and that you can realistically start now. Some tips for choosing a project, number one would be to obviously make it personally interesting. You stick with it if you care about the outcome. If you love music, maybe build a simple playlist organizer. If you're into fitness, maybe a workout tracker like I did. You have a small business idea, maybe just build a prototype of it. Right? Keep it small and achievable. Don't aim to build the next Facebook as your first project. That's a recipe for overwhelm. Instead, take a slice of a bigger idea or a simplified version, like not a full e-commerce site with 50 features. How about a basic product listing page with a card, or even just a fancy to list but for books to read or watch movies. Use the tools you've already have some familiarity with. If you've been doing tutorials in JavaScript, build with JavaScript. This isn't a time to suddenly switch and say, I'm going to learn Rust and build something with it if you've never touched Rust, right? So remember, focus is your friend, one set of technologies at a time. Take a day or two to plan out roughly what your project will do. Write it down in simple terms. For example, a user can add an item, a user can delete an item, data is stored in the browser, this is your roadmap, okay? It's okay if you're not sure how to implement some parts. That's actually good because it means you'll learn when you get to those parts. Next would be to set up your project workspace. This might mean initializing a Git repository. If you haven't learned Git yet, hey, great opportunity to do so in context, right? There are quick guides out there. Again, learn just enough to start. Create the basic files, maybe a simple HTML file and a JavaScript file, or if it's something like Python, set up a project folder. The key is to create a sandbox where you will build, and this makes it real from day one. Now, commit to a schedule for the next 30 days. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't need to quit your job and code 12 hours a day, unless you want to, of course. And yeah, it could be a good idea, right? But burnout is real, so do be cautious of that. That's a whole topic on its own. In fact, consistency beats intensity. I'd rather you code 30 minutes to an hour every single day than do 8 hours on a weekend and then nothing for a week, right? 30 minutes, of course, in an ideal world, you can do 8 hours every day, right? But 30 minutes daily adds up to 15 hours in a month. And those 15 hours will be more effective because your brain is working on it a bit every day, keeping the context fresh. So decide, can you spare an hour every evening? Or maybe you're a morning person, do a power session from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. before work or classes. Lock it in, make it a non-negotiable. Tell your friends or family, hey, this is my coding time, I'm focusing. If you can manage more time on weekends, great, but build in that habit, right? Finally, just start coding. Day one of building, you might just set up the basic UI or write like a hello world in the app to make sure everything is wired up. Celebrate that, seriously. Even if it's just a blank page that prints hello world from your script, you made something from scratch. That's more than you had yesterday. During this phase, you will inevitably feel the pull to tutorials when you hit a tough spot. When that happens, not if, but when that happens, here's what to do. Resist diving into a full course. Instead, search for the specific issue. For example, you're trying to make a HTTP request and it's not working. Rather than watching a 3-hour tutorial on building a weather app, which happens to cover requests, just Google it, right? Google JavaScript fetch API post example, or Python, how to read file line by line. Whatever exact thing that you need. Use official documentation or a quick article for that narrow thing. Yes, documentation can be intimidating, but remember, you don't have to understand 100% of it. Just skim through and search for what you need, and you'll be surprised. Often, the official docs have very clear examples for common tasks. If you're really stuck even after searching, this is a good time to ask for help. Post your questions to Stack Overflow. Go to AI maybe to get some ideas from it, or join a developer forum. I always tell my students, asking questions is a superpower. Just make sure you tried something first and be specific in what you ask. There are a lot of friendly folks out there who are willing to help a learner who's willing to put in effort. Okay, so by the end of phase one, ideally you have the core skeleton of your project in place and maybe a couple of features working. But even if it's not fully working yet, you will have already learned so much more in the 1 month of doing this than perhaps months and months of passive tutorials. You might also notice your mindset shifting. The problems that used to scare you, right? I don't know how to do X, for example. And now they're just triggers for a Google search and a bit of experimentation, and you're building resilience and resourcefulness. That's important. Now, the next phase, the second phase, is all about accelerating the building process and diving deeper. By now, you should be somewhat warmed up. You have a basic project going, and hopefully the habit of coding regularly. Phase two is where you aim to complete your project's main functionality and intentionally push yourself slightly beyond your comfort zone. So at the start of this phase, list out the remaining features or components that your project needs to be complete, at least for a version 1.0. Then schedule them out roughly over the next 4 weeks. For example, week 5, I'll tackle user authentication, maybe using an API or a simple login form. Week 6, I'm going to do UI UX, making it not just functional, but a bit more polished. Week 7, I'll add in, that cool extra feature that I thought of, but wasn't sure I could do. The exact plan will depend on your project, but give yourself weekly goals and write them down. Make sure at least one part of your project in this phase scares you a little bit, for instance, maybe you've been avoiding working with databases because it seems complicated, or you're intimidated by backend logic if you're mainly doing front end or vice versa, pick one such challenge and make it into a goal to implement it. This is how you stretch your abilities. In my fitness app, for example, in phase 2, I decided to implement user accounts so I could potentially share it with a friend. I had no idea how to implement a user login system at the time. It was definitely beyond what any of my prior tutorials had covered, but I broke it down. User accounts typically mean a database for users and some authentication mechanism. So I ended up learning just enough of backend framework. I dabbled with Express.js and a bit of setting up a simple JSON file as a mock database, nothing too fancy, to get a basic login work. It was ugly. It wasn't the most secure thing ever. Don't worry, this is just a learning project. It's not live for the world, right? But wow, did I learn a lot from that, right? By tackling that scary part, when it was done, I just felt invincible. Like, if I could figure that out, I could literally figure out anything eventually. It's just a matter of time. So at this point, some of you might be thinking, okay, but can I watch some tutorials now? Here's my recommendation. Continue to avoid full-length courses, but it's fine to look up short tutorials or specific YouTube videos for targeted learning. The key difference is you're pulling information as needed, not just consuming whatever comes next in a playlist. If you suddenly need to implement feature X and you find a 15-minute tutorial that does just that, just go for it, right? Watch it at 1.5 speed, take notes, and then apply it immediately in your projects. Never sit there and just watch passively, right? Especially in this phase. If you watch something, pause often and mirror it in your own code and adapt it to your needs. Remember to keep Googling and to read documentation as primary tools. By now, you might even get more comfortable with official docs of your chosen tools or languages. The goal is that by the end of phase 2, searching and reading to solve problem feels almost second nature to you. You will start approaching bugs like a detective. The error message says X. Let me paste that into Google and see what comes up. Oh, a Stack Overflow question. Oh, here's someone who has the same issue. And then you try the solution and there we go, right? The little process of problem to research, to fixing it, to understanding it is exactly what real developers do on the job every single day. And if you cultivate that, you are literally learning how to be a developer, not just how to code. So yeah, in phase 2, you might hit a midpoint slump. This happens in any long project. The initial excitement fades a bit and the finish line isn't quite there yet. This is normal. One way to push through is to recall why you're doing this. Revisit your goal. Imagine, just look at the light at the end of the tunnel. Just imagine that in a few more weeks, you will have this project completed. Imagine how awesome that will feel and how it'll be something that you can even show in your portfolio or mention in interviews if that's your aim. And that's huge. You now have done something that so many people can only dream of, actually finishing a project and use that as a feel. Also, allow yourself a bit of fun. Maybe during this phase, reward yourself for those milestones. Finish a major feature, treat yourself to a nice meal, right? Or go out for a night out, guilt-free. Keeping morale high is important in a self-driven learning journey, where you have to take care of yourself because no one's holding you accountable, right? So by the end of phase 2, which is around 60 days, aim to have a working version of your product with all the core features. It might still have some bugs, but maybe the design isn't great, but functionality, it does what it's supposed to do, okay? That's important. So congratulate yourself for that. That's a massive accomplishment, honestly, right? 90% of people don't even get here, right? 2 months ago, you might have thought that this was impossible, and here you are now. Okay, the next phase, now you've built something that's amazing, but the last phase is about consolidating your learning, adding a few final touches, and planning your next move so you don't slip back into old habits. So spend some time cleaning up your project. This can involve fixing up the obvious bugs that you know about, refactoring some of the messy code. And oh, trust me, right? There will be messy code. I accumulate so many of it when learning new stuff. This process of refactoring is actually a great learning experience. You start seeing patterns like, oh, I wrote a similar code here in 3 places. Maybe I can just create a reusable function for that. Or this part is really hard to learn. Let me add comments or reorganize it. You might even realize you now understand a concept better and you can implement it more clearly than you did in phase 1. So go ahead and do that. It's satisfying to see your project become more stable and clean. Next would be to write a README for your project as if you were going to show it on GitHub. In fact, do put it on GitHub or some repository hosting if you haven't. It's good practice. Explain what the project does, how to run it, what technologies you use, document your project. This not only documenting your project not only prepares you for sharing, but it forces you to step back and see the whole picture and you realize how much you've actually accomplished. Plus, explaining it in written form can solidify your understanding. I highly recommend taking a little time to reflect and maybe even journal to make a list. What are the key things I learned while building the project? It could be technical, like how to use React state management, or the basics of REST APIs, or even some meta skills. Bugging is not as scary anymore, how to break down problems. This reflection helps you lock in the knowledge and also gives you the confidence boost. Seeing that list grow is concrete proof that you're not just spinning wheels, you've actually gained real skills. And then finally, if you're comfortable with it, share your project with the world, deploy on a free hosting service. There are so many. You can use GitHub Pages or for the front end. You can use Heroku or Vercel or others for web applications, etc. Show it to your friends, put it on your LinkedIn, your web development portfolio. This is a huge motivation boost, and it also mimics the real world where developers ship products. Even if only 5 people use it and gave feedback, that's fantastic. It closes the loop of creation. You made something that people actually interact with. The feeling is what likely sparked your interest in coding in the first place, and here you are doing it for real. Now, after 90 days, you've likely made a habit of coding and learning by doing. The last thing we want is to fall back into old patterns. So decide on what's next. It could be expanding this project with new features. It could be starting a new project from scratch to learn a different aspect or a new technology. Or if your goal is to get a job, maybe now focus on the interview prep or contributing to open source to get a more collaborative experience. Or maybe you feel like you would benefit from a bit more structured learning now that you have the context. For example, after building, you might think, I keep writing clunky code. Maybe I should take a short course on clean code practices or algorithms. That's fine, because at this point, you'll be consuming such material with a very different mindset because you have your own experience to relate to. So just be cautious not to slide back into endless passive learning, right? So by 90 days, if you follow this plan, you will have essentially reprogrammed your approach to learning. This is a change to my life, honest, not just to coding, but everything else, my mindset, my self-confidence. I know, nothing can stop me, right? You will see tutorials as supplements, not crutches. You will approach new problems with more courage. And crucially, you have actual proof of your ability in the form of something you built. Now, I know real life is messy and you might not follow this timeline to the letter, right? Maybe your first project takes 45 days instead of 60 days or vice versa, and that's okay. The point isn't the exact number of days. It's the overall approach. Less consumption, more creation, more building, less passive, more active, and focus on consistency over breadth, embracing challenges over avoiding them. All right, so I think that's all I want to talk about today. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up so more people can discover it. You never know who else is silently struggling in tutorial help and might need to hear this. And subscribe for more content on learning to code, breaking into tech, building a career, or even a business with your skills, right? I'm here to share everything I've learned on my journey, the good, bad, the ugly, so you can learn faster than I did. All right, so that's all from me today. I genuinely hope you feel inspired to take action. Remember, tutorials have their place, but your progress begins when you take the training wheels off, okay? The next 90 days are going to pass no matter what. You might as well be 90 days closer to your dream, right? Rather than sticking and staying at the same spot. So you've got this. I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you build when you escape tutorial hell, right? Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me. Now go get your hands dirty with some code, and until next time, happy coding and take care.